Cliff, uh, when he was 13, he had started junior high school, and his older brother, Scott, who was 16 at the time, uh, died of a brain aneurysm. And shortly after uh, Scott died, Cliff came to his mother and me and asked if if he could take up learn to play the bass guitar. And the reason he liked that bass guitar is the Barney Miller Show, which is a comedy cop show. And it was real good comedy. But anyway, they started it off with a bass solo. And Cliff just loved that bass solo. So he wanted to learn to play the bass guitar and get the same sound that came out of, or very close to what it was in that show. And then he took lessons, and he, through school and that, I want to mention that my first introduction with Mike Borton, who Cliff and Mike started junior high school together, the 7th grade, and they just hit it off as good friends just right off the bat. And so when we were going to the funeral for Scott, we were just crossing Redwood Road on Castro Valley Boulevard, and I saw this little kid over to my right running across the light was with him, running across the street as our car, we were going by him. And Cliff, who was in the back seat, says, "Dad, stop, that's my friend Mike." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I pulled over, and so Mike caught up with us, and he got in the car, and so I was introduced to Mike Borton. And Mike and Cliff were just really, really good friends. And so anyway, Cliff joined a little rock group called Easy Street, and Jan or I used to take him to rehearsals, and in that band was not Mike, but Jim Martin, and I think David DiDonato was a drummer, and I think later on Mike Borton played the drums, because there was an agreement with when Cliff wanted to learn the bass, Mike said, "Well, I'll learn to play the drums." So there was a 2/3 or 1/2 of a band put together right there, and yet they never, once they got involved in the music part, they very seldom, other than jamming together, and the jamming was also a great enjoyment, where they'd go out on this barn. A high school friend's granddad had a barn out in the boonies there in Castro Valley, and they could go out there and crank up their volume is higher than all get out, because nobody lived out there, and they just Cliff just loved to do that, just jam away. So, but anyway, they Easy Street was the first band with a name that Cliff joined, and then later on he went with Trauma, and that's where Trauma traveled a little, and they traveled down to Los Angeles and played at the Whiskey A Go Go, and that's where James and Lars were looking for a new bass guitarist, because McGovney was going to be quitting and to go back to school. And so anyway, the history, I think you've probably read it before. And, they got together, and Cliff didn't want to move to Los Angeles to join the band, so they moved to the Bay Area. And Metallica, which had been in business 2 years before Cliff joined them, and but Cliff joined them. I think it was in the spring of 1983, and so the history is just that's my dog snoring over there. Our dog. I don't know if it picked it up or not, but anyway, he's I've never seen a dog that snorted as loud as that little fart does. So anyway, back to old Cliff. We just we loved the guy and still love him, and that is the wonderful part about Cliff, is that he was such an enjoyable person and such a friendly person that people who never met him, yet they have seen pictures of him, and that just have developed an affection for him, and so have we, always have been. You know, I knew the little guy at the time he was little. He was born until he was 24 years of age. So anyway, let's have a toast to a wonderful human being and a wonderful guitar player, and yes, we all can be sad, but just kind of make the sadness easier by thinking of the things of Cliff that were humorous and in some cases kind of intellectual. So anyway, with that, here's a toast to Cliff, and may he rest in peace.